Okay, ladies and gentle dudes, I'm here with my twin brother, just chilling out. Actually, I'm going to finish up the last chapter I was reading last night of this incredible book. Oh, it's 2 books. Wow, 3 books. Upside down. Okay. Anyway, let me go back together. Wow. I love these camera tricks, huh? Okay, we were reading from the Sir William Wallace chapter called Sir William. And where was I exactly? Here I was. Okay, so we just read parts of the Psalms, and when you insert the England in for all the bad stuff, you get what he was preaching. Okay, starting up again on page 415. I'm going to read a little bit of what I just read last time, so make sure I'm back to the right spot. Okay. Ask of me, and I shall give you this land occupied by the English for thine inheritance, and these parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a porter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Be wise now, O ye kings. Kiss this son of Scotland, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way when his wrath is kindled. Okay, that's his version of Psalms, because he added in what he felt related to him and his experience. Okay, I just showed you how to read the first 2 Psalms. He would read all of the Psalms like that, regardless of what the psalmist had in mind. If you continue on with the other 148 of them, you will wonder how so much could fit his life so perfectly. You will see what he saw, and you will know what internal force moved him to act with such mighty power. He always carried a psalter, Psalter. Maybe that's a book of Psalms, book of Psalms. I never see that word before. Okay, and read it out loud frequently for others to hear it, and also quietly at more reflective moments. It was his strength, losing or winning, in sorrows or in joys. It all had the same effect, bringing him back to the book for inspiration. He turned to it in bright gratitude and in dark desperation, in loud sermonizing and in quiet amazement, in this proud boasting and in his proud boasting and in humble supplication, prayer, supplication. Please give me, supplicating to the Lord, thinking something's outside of you, you supplicate. But the only thing you should be supplicating is to yourself, because you are the infinite being you truly be if you're watching these videos, as long as you're watching them. So thank you for that, because you know who you are, because I know who you are, because you are me and I am you. We are all together. As John Lennon said, I am he as you are me, and we are all together. Okay. He turned to it in bright gratitude and in dark desperation, in loud sermonizing and in quiet amazement, in his proud boasting and his humble supplication. Read that again. It was his life. Even while being murdered, executed, his personal psalter, Psalter, which had never left his side, was opened for him to read. William Wallace regularly motivated his followers with sermons that relied on Psalms and also on the rest of the Scriptures, a great many of which were memorized, sometimes imperfectly. Lengthy sermons streamed from him as easily as natural conversation. It is what it all was to him. Love was one of his themes that drove people to fight, which sounds odd, but is true. They would all rely on the God of love to defend the liberties they loved, the land they loved, the women and children they loved, and all that was good that they loved. Because of the principle of love, everyone should be free to govern themselves. So this is why he fought against the British rule of Scotland. For those who didn't read the first, this is from the Memoirs of Billy Shears. This is written by William Wallace Campbell, otherwise known as Billy Shears, who took over the part of Sir Elton John. Actually, it wasn't Sir Elton John. Sir Elton John. I just said that wrong. Okay, not John Lennon either. Paul McCartney, which wasn't Sir Paul McCartney until much after he died. So Paul McCartney, James Paul McCartney, died, according to this author, who is the person who he claims he took over his position in the band, the Beatles, when he died. So James Paul McCartney, according to this author, died in 1966, September 11th. Okay, so that's what we're reading, in case you didn't hear the other sections. Okay, going on. If they were loved by the English, they would share in brotherhood, not servitude. So if true Christians, which England was definitely not, as it was a fucking bastardizing the teachings just as much as the Romans did, using it for genocide in the name of Jesus, which has been the history of Christianity, almost every country it's gone to. But if they were really following the Gospels and loving like Jesus said, then they would not be wanting to make Scotland bow down to them. They would share in the liberties that they have. Okay, once again, love, love, love. William Wallace, the real man, was not the hard-hearted, evil-minded, or murderous man he has been depicted as being. His actions were focused on establishing equality. He acted bravely according to his beliefs, which is more than can be said of most people. He lived by the good book, the Bible. William had sought the priesthood, but did not have the birthright. So in all colonial, or what do we want to call them? Ancient societies like this, I can't think of the word, I said it last time. The firstborn son was the only one who could be a priest. So even though he was a second-born son, he couldn't be a priest based on the laws of Scotland and the laws of the Catholic Church, which ruled Scotland, and the British Crown wanted to take over Scotland from the Catholic Church, which is why they became Protestants, so they can break away from the Catholic Church, so they can take over the lands that the Catholic Church ruled. Okay, no more bishop ruling us. So which one is worse? I don't know. All Christians were not really practicing Christ's teaching. They were a bunch of bastardizing people, destroying people and killing countries and destroying everything. Okay, they were just fucking mad, crazy people, and using as a means and justification for it a book that was so bastardized you couldn't even fucking make sense out of most of it anyway. Okay, William had sought the priesthood but did not have the birthright. Instead, he studied scripture for his own benefit, which richly spilled into all else, enhancing his leadership roles. He was as competent to doctrinally expound, exhort, and edify as any of the religious leaders of his time. He knew Gaelic and Latin as well as most scholarly priests. William did pilgrimages, was a father to the fatherless, and the whole bit. He was a priest's priest. but not by any institutional ordination. Love ruled his heart. He cared for the poor and the needy, the weary and exhausted, and sick and infirm, the sick and infirm. He never missed private prayer or public worship. A close associate, John Blair, was a renowned Benedictine monk. These lifelong friends discussed religion, theology, philosophy, poetry, government, history, and current world affairs. Both men were naturally inclined to seek all manner of learning and virtue. Both gentlemen were creative and brilliantly educated, as much so as any monk of their day. They shared core values and desires, both finding delight in uplifting all whom they met in their frequent travels. The William Wallace of Braveheart was a likable fellow, but did not possess the distinct holiness that so strikingly radiated from the real man. In unabashed defiance against the King of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury gave William Wallace his last rite before his execution. The sanctity of the condemned man was much too certain to leave his request unfulfilled, even though it risked dire consequences from King Edward. William's brutal execution, which was done in a terribly horrific manner at Smithfield Elms in London, followed his capture and extradition to London, made possible by a betraying Judas. A mock trial found him guilty and ordered him executed for treason. A few years ago, I honored Sir William Wallace on the septennial, septis 7. That's why September used to be the 7th month. Oct is October. Used to be the 8th month until Julius Caesar and frickin' Augustus added in July and August and fucked up the whole numbering systems of the. But of course, even with that system, spring would have been the new year, so March would have been the new year, so it would have still been the 8th month or 9th month. But anyway, that's a whole long story too. Starting a new year in winter is really strange because it doesn't follow the natural cycle of nature. That would be the end. That would be death. That would be completion. That would be the end of the year. The beginning of the year would always be when the sprouts and springing out, and that's when Jesus was born. Okay, anyway, he wasn't born on December 21st. He was just born in springtime. And the reason why he couldn't be the next David king, which he was supposed to be, and his older brother was going to be, and the reason why he had to run into exile when they thought they killed him, is because he wasn't born in the time of a king was supposed to be born. So in the Jewish rites of kings, they had to be born at a certain time of year, and because Jesus' mother and father had sex in a wrong time of year, they had to call him illegitimate, which got bastardized into he was immaculately conceived, which he wasn't. He was just illegitimate because he wasn't born at the time of the year that was supposed to be for a Jewish king to be born. So that's why he couldn't be king, and his older brother was to be king until they killed off them, and David Kings didn't ever last. Okay, anyway, you got to read the real history of the man Jesus Christ, not the myth that Christianity created around him. A good book for that. Do I have it here? Let's see. There's many books, but I don't think I have it here. Maybe I do, but I have too many books there to look at. Anyway, on to my other subject. It was written by a lady, and I can't remember her name, who really thoroughly studied the actual history of the character, not the myth. The actual person who went off in hiding when the two other people, Judas and the other guy, got hung on the cross with him, but they gave him sleeping herbs, and he fell asleep, and they said, oh, he's already dead, can we take him off the cross? Yes. And they went to go bury him up in the caves, and they set him free at that time, after he pushed the dead body of Judas off the cliff, and then he ran away. Okay. A few years ago, I honored Sir William Wallace on the centennial, that's the 700th year anniversary of his ignominious death, wrongful death. The small gathering occurred for those who would appreciate it on the 23rd of August 2005. I hope others remembered my ancestor too. Several people claim to be direct descendants of Sir William Wallace. This is fully reasonable since it has been so long since his death. He would have a great posterity by now. However, I do not see any reason to believe that those who have the Wallace surname have any special claim on him, since William had no sons to carry on that name. So one of his uncles or aunts could have had the Wallace name passed on by male people if everyone chose to take the male descendant's name, which they usually did in patriarchal societies. That's what I was going to say. Not patriarchal. Anyway, I forgot the name. That Scotland was, and all the other feudalist. There we are, feudalist. In feudalist societies, the first son is the only person that can be in the priesthood. The second son has to do, I forget what it is, but anyway, they each have their own role. It's all rankism, it's all sexism, it's all freaking bullshitism, feudalism. Anyway, I won't go on about that. He would have, however, I do not see any reason to believe that those who have the Wallace surname have any special claim on him, since William had no sons to carry on that name. Chief Saras Wallace of the Glasgow Wallace clan has my respect for preserving the Scottish culture, but has nothing on me or my Sir W. pedigree. I am a direct descendant of William Wallace. It does not get more direct than that. If the chief's line picked up the Wallace name generations later, then he too may be a direct descendant. But not every Wallace who claims to come from William is authentically his. Some come from a brother or some other relative. I do not know about his case, but consider him a fine distant cousin. Evidently, William Wallace only really loved two women romantically. One was murdered by a repugnant English sheriff. That's what I was trying to say yesterday, sheriff. I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy. Anyway, this William Wallace killed the sheriff after that. So his lover was murdered by this repugnant English sheriff after she rebuffed his sexual advance. So some English sheriff says, I want to have sex with you. And she says, I don't want to have sex with you. Oh, yeah? Well, I'll just stab you to death. That's how they were loving Christians. Yeah, right. This injustice pushed William over the edge. Oh, he claimed bodily rights to her by virtue of his position. So, because I'm a sheriff, I have a right to fuck you if I want to fuck you. So, if you don't want me to fuck you, I kill you. That's how they did it back then. Man, we're Christian, yeah, Yeah, Christ would surely do something like that? No, I don't think so. The bastardized Christian nation. Anyway, it still is. All Christian nations are fucking bastardized. They're not really practicing Christianity. They're the antithesis of Christ. That's why they call the Antichrist. Hey, Antichrist? Yeah, Christian nations. There you are, baby. Okay, he claimed bodily rights to her by virtue of his position. This injustice pushed Wallace over the edge. Justice could not possibly come if he did not administer it himself. So he's the only one that can administer justice. That's the kind of fucking justice the English fucking country is going to do against our people. Claim it has the right to fuck anyone they want or kill them. Then, especially someone he loved, he wasn't going to have that. He killed the English sheriff, making himself an outlaw in his own nation. and driving him unrelentingly forward to redeem Scotland from further English abuses. His grudge against the sheriff who murdered his beloved, the loss of his father, and the never-ending travesties that would only stop when someone stopped them, all combined to such a level of heightened indignation in him that he had to act. Being a fugitive in his country magnified the emptiness he suffered with his tremendous loss, but also freed him to act fearlessly according to his whims, independent of law. Finding himself on the outside of the law, no law could have any hold on him except for the law written in his heart. Fortunately for Scotland, that heart's law was religiously bridled by holy scriptures and by his impassioned desperation to free his people from London rule. William launched a strong crusade against English presence. He became Scotland's defender and ultimately the father of Scotland's nationhood. 7 centuries later, he still remains an unparalleled legend, the greatest hero in Scottish history, and a fixed symbol of patriotism and of Scottish independence, more than has been depicted in movies. Sir William Wallace is a man with soul. Justice was more important to Wallace than odds. It paid off. Although well outnumbered, his army defeated the English army at Stirling Bridge using guts, strategy, and intimidation. This victory, more than any other, brought him his immortal fame because it is what drove the English out of Scotland. Enjoying this great triumph, he opened his Psalter to 91:7. I forget how they say this in the Bible. Psalm 91 something 7. I forget how they say it. And read out loud. Quote, 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right side, but it shall not come nigh thee. I don't understand this fucking Bible quote. I read it over a few times. So maybe all these thousands will die in the hands of 3 people. I don't know. But shall not come nigh thee. If someone is a Bible scholar, please tell me, because I forgot. I wrote it many lifetimes ago when I had to do this King James Bible translation. But I was more interested in encoding it than actually making sense out of the senselessness of it. Part of his success was due to word of mouth legends about him that freaked people out. There's a rumor that he had the skin of an Englishman on the hilt of his huge sword. The creepy belief persisted until about a century ago, when it was checked, disappointing some people and relieving others. Leather, not human skin, was all that was used. Still, the idea of it made people fear him. My heritage and ancestors feel closest to me when I am out on my farm in Scotland. When we can look to the past, we may better understand the present. My Wallace ancestry, being part of my Crawford and Shepherd family heritage, matters to me, but we are ultimately what we make ourselves. Ancestors provide lessons, but cannot pass on all of their greatness. We earn that ourselves. They just remind us of what we can do. One similar fault I have with that William is that One similar fault I have with that William, which is William Wallace, is that we both waited to act. Though he had a cause, it was not until he had lost enough, until he had nothing more to lose, that he neglected his fears. In some ways I did the same. I had my own musical talent before Paul died, but even though I may have been good enough, I did not trust myself fully enough to make it as William. Yet, losing my identity and my own life, I could do anything. After all, now I am J. Paul McCartney. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter is 666999. It's explaining why this book is 666 pages and why he's 666. And 666 turned over as 999 with the head in the ground, which is Paul McCartney. He was a 999. It's all in Roman numerology. Anyway, I'm going to bed. It's almost 11 o'clock. Peace out. See you guys all later. Bye-bye.